Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of Pistols for Center Axis Relock. Now, 50% of this video is going to be me answering questions that people actually ask me. The other 50% is going to be me talking about stuff I was going to discuss anyway. So, one of the questions that I was asked was that if you can use an Uzi in the car system. And yeah, you can. Here's a crappy model that I've got now. Yes, you can hold it this way, you can use it this way. The only thing that's different is that with Uzis, based on their shape, is that if you're holding it at your natural reading distance, unlike a semi-automatic pistol, it's going to be right dead set in my face. Okay, so what you want to do is make sure that you extend it outwards a little bit more, and essentially that's the only difference when using them. Other than that, what you can do, which is a little bit better, is, you know, get a stock on it, get a little handle grip here, and then you can just use it the way that you would a assault rifle or a submachine gun that has a stock on it. So I find having one like that gives it more support, and Uzis are very fucking heavy. Something else I wanted to discuss is this point that gets argued back and forth between me and other people that are proficient with guns but don't train in the car system. And they keep on wondering why, I mean, when in this position, why they think that that's an effective way of gripping a gun as well as maintaining its recoil. And, well, here's the thing. You know when you're trying to get the lid of a jar that just won't budge, and you're trying with all your might to undo it, and when you're doing that, you're holding the jar way out here with your arms outstretched? Yeah, me neither. In order to get a better grip on it, you're holding it here, right? Look familiar? Same as, like in Krav Maga, all the time they talk about when someone's being choked, for real, okay, with that rage and aggression. In order to get the best grip on someone, even if you don't have that aggression through you, just try this anyway without it, and it feels very unnatural and uncomfortable. So when you're choking someone, if your arms are outstretched like that, this feels really just no, okay? People are going to have their their arms in this structure because that's what gives them the better grip. So for me, my argument is that when I'm holding a gun, it's the exact same principles. I find this to be a much better way of controlling the recoil of a gun. And assuming you're doing it properly, if you train long enough to hold a gun this way, and every time you fire it, you should be able to maintain that recoil effectively. And if not better than holding the gun outstretched like so. Someone asked me, how would you protect the pistol if it's in the close quarter ready position? Well, the exact same way as if it was in the close quarter position. If it's here, all the other principles are really exactly the same. The only difference is that I'm aiming the gun down. So if someone does come in to grab it, again, move it out the way and then step back, and then from here, if you need to shoot them, you can shoot them. If you need to put a strike in, you can do that, or whatever the situation calls upon, okay? If you've had enough training, you should know what to do when the time and the occasion arises. Alright, what I want to talk about now is a variation of the close quarter position. This involves using one hand. Typically it's because the supporting hand will be fighting off someone. So the situation that you would typically use this in is if you have to fight off one or more people at a range where you could extend your hand out and touch them. So this is how it works. So again, other principles are the same as far as having the gun push into the body. So, you know, body towards the gun, and then the gun towards the body. Now, the supporting hand I want to have up here or out here, so it's out of the way of the gun, because it involves, while still having it towards my body, moving it around like so. The reason for this is because if I'm fighting bad guy number 1 and he's here and I'm out like this, I take the gun out and I double shoot him, or double tap as some people call it, and it takes him more than immediately to become incapacitated, which in real life is usually the case. It's not like the movies where someone gets shot and immediately falls down. Then I see the other bad guy coming. What I want to do is move the gun around me like that, still having it close to my body, and then, if need be, I'll shoot the other guy. And I want to have it close to my body because A, if I'm pushing the gun into my body, I'll have better recoil control as well as better retention if someone tries to come and take the gun from me. Now, with the supporting hand, what I want to do is, if I just push this guy off me and the other guy's coming in really close and I'm like this here and I go shoot him, I want to have this hand up here, okay, with the palm open. I don't want to make a closed fist like that, because if I need to come back down to the primary close quarter position that involves two hands, I want to do it this way. Actually, I'll tell about how I don't want to do it first. I don't want to do this, where I come like that, because I don't want to muzzle swipe the gun. So, what I want to do is have it here. I want to bring it right down to my chest. Okay, so if the gun's here and I bring the gun down to my chest, I'll then intercept the thumbs this way. And as you can see here in rapid motion, I'm not at any point muzzle swiping the weapon. The other thing too is I don't want to make a fist, because I don't want to have to come down here and then have to uncoil my my fingers in order to grip the gun. When it comes to transitioning the gun into the other hand, there's 2 points I want to touch on. One, I don't think it's a good idea to do that when you're in the very middle of the combat situation, because the majority of people with that stress are probably going to just drop the gun anyway. So if you can just use the same hand to shoot what it is you need to shoot at, I'd recommend doing that. So here's my point. Let's say I'm shooting this way and then I need to shoot something that's coming from me at this angle. What's faster, doing this or doing this? With that being said, there are some situations that you may not have a choice. So for example, if you're in a car, using car, but no, seriously though, if you're in that seat, you can't really move your body around that much, and so you may not have a choice. So if I've got to shoot out this window at something, I can't really effectively move my hand all the way like that to shoot at something else that might be on this side. So yeah, from here I may not have a choice but to swap hands. And the other question people ask me is there any tricks or tips and stuff that I can give them to teach them how to like swap hands, you know, at a fast, rapid pace, whether I'm in this position here, you know, or anyway, I can still do it this way without moving my body if need be. But yeah, really no, it just kind of comes down to practice. The one little kind of tip that I can teach people is to do this. So notice the way the gun's tilted now. What I want to do, and this is a mistake a lot of people make, is that as they're swapping hands, they'll swap hands like this and then they'll tilt the gun like that during that transition. What I would prefer to do is tilt the gun like so here. Alright, so as I do this, I'm already tilted the gun in the direction I need. So I kind of like tilt the gun, then I swap hands. And again, it's done in such a fast motion that it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing when I'm doing it quickly. It's why I'm breaking it down for you now. So again, tilt the gun, then swap the hand. So what happens first is this. I'll tilt the gun. Okay, my thumbs break apart. I'll move the supporting hand around like so, and then the rest just kind of follows from there. Alright? And then same as when going back in the other direction. So yeah, that's really the best advice I can give you, is tilt the gun first. Let's discuss a couple of advanced reloading techniques. These techniques involve having the spare magazine in your hand before you completely run out of ammo. So, as you take it from your spare magazine pouch, there are 2 ways that you can hold it. Number 1 is the cigarette grip, making sure that the rounds are aiming towards my knuckles, not pointed in the same direction that my fingers are pointing. So, after I had that, if I'm in the combat position like this, I can still fire all the other rounds I need to fire, and then when I need to reload, again, the principles are exactly the same as in the first video, where I eject it like so, and then get the other magazine in there, rack the slide, then getting the gun back into action. That technique, however, is a little bit difficult for some people to pull off when they're in the apogee position, especially if it's a double stack magazine. So the other way that you can hold it is, as you go and reach it and take it from your magazine pouch, is to grip it like so. Having now the rounds, well, let's just say the rounds are already forward. As you go and grab it like this, as you go and pull it up, just grab it like this. Therefore the round should be aiming where they need to be aimed anyway, which basically is between the knuckles of my fingers and the knuckles, the knuckle of my thumb. So here and here, they should be aiming right here. So once again, let's just pretend like this is in a magazine pouch. As I go grab it, I'll take it up, and then just grab it like so, as you can see here. Yeah, sorry, the microphone's there, and if I move in front of it, you won't hear my voice so clearly. So, anyway. So, as it's here, you can grip it and have it like so, just as if you were holding a flashlight. And now, if I need to reload the gun, boom, again, it's out of ammunition, so I'll eject out of the round, bring the elbow to the rib cage, and it doesn't take very long for me to come from this position and then move it to here. Then, like I said, everything from there is the same as before. I found gripping the spare magazine this way works a lot better for when I have to push the gun out into the apogee position, because as I do so, I'll push the gun out, then I roll my hand over like so, and I'm pushing these knuckles into the wrist. And here's that from this angle. And again, you should be using that isometric pressure. And then of course, once you have to reload, well, it's the same principles as before. Alternatively, when you push out to the apogee position, you don't have to roll this hand over like so. You can just keep them the same way and just push out like this. But some people, they find this uncomfortable, and so that's why I altered it to this. If you're using a flashlight, however, the technique of when you extend out and rolling the hand around like this won't work because, well, now I'm not aiming the light at what I need to be aiming it at. Alright, what I want to talk about now is what to do when the slide of semi-automatic handguns is locked to the rear, and I'm going to take the magazine out when demonstrating this. And as I stated, this slide doesn't lock back on its own, so I'm going to have to use my finger to hold it in place to demonstrate my point. So, there's two schools of thought when it comes to this. Some people like hitting the slide release to send the slide forward. Other people, myself included, prefer just to grab the slide, pull it back, and then let it go. Now, there are pros and cons of both of them. So, the pro, when it comes to using the slide release, is that it will bring the gun back into service faster. It is a little bit slower to grab it with the whole hand like this and pull it back, but here's why I prefer doing that, because everything I do is in the interest of self-defense and combat, not competition shooting. If you're a competition shooter, I'm sure that you can really effectively hit the slide release every time, no problem. But under high levels of stress, as a few instructors say, the explanation they use is that fingers turn to flippers, and so a lot of the times when people are under high levels of stress, because they don't have as much feeling throughout their entire body, fingers included, they're struggling to hit that slide release and it won't go. So technically speaking, in theory, while it would be faster if they were able to hit the slide release to get the slide forward, if they can't do it, well then ultimately it would be faster just to grab the slide and rack it. The other issue as well is that with 1911s, you can't even reach the slide release with the thumb of the weapon hand. So if for whatever reason you did need to do that, use the thumb of your supporting hand, and as you go bring it over like that, hit it that way and send the slide forward. Now, when it comes to fingers turning to flippers, yeah, that is the majority of people. I'm sure there are, because there are exceptions with every rule, and I'm sure there are a few people out there that won't feel those effects of stress, because some people are just freaks of nature, and they can make stuff like this work. So, if that is you, well then, okay, yeah, slide release would be faster. But if it's not you, don't try and, pretend like you're Superman or Superwoman or Special Forces this, Special Forces that. Just do what's going to work for you under that level of pressure and under those circumstances. And now here's the thing. I cannot confirm nor deny if I'm one of those people that can still hit the slide release no problem. But here's why I won't do it anyway and still prefer to rack the slide. Now, slides back. When you hit the slide release and bring the slide forward, about 99.9% of the time that will still pick up a round and feed it into the chamber, but for the time where it doesn't, it's probably going to be the time where I need it the most. So when the slide's already back, I still prefer grabbing it and pulling it back that little bit of extra distance to get that extra insurance that it will pick up that round and feed it into the chamber. So for me, that's why I'm always an advocator of just racking the slide every single time. And the other thing as well is that when the slide's back like this, when people magazine into it, depending on the make and model of the semi-automatic gun, depending on the angle and whatnot and inertia and all that kind of stuff, but basically, occasionally when they slap it in, the slide goes forward automatically. If that should happen, what I tell people to do is just rack the slide anyway. Yeah, you'll lose a round, but assuming you're got a decent gun, so something that's double stacked and can hold a decent amount of rounds, losing that one round is not detrimental to the fight, okay? But if you have a single stack 1911 like this exact model here, maybe, but, again, it really depends on the circumstances and situations. But here's the thing. Let's just say that it was this 1911, where you inserted the 7-round magazine, and then the slide went forward, did pick up a round, and then you eject it, and now you've ejected that round out, so now you're left with 6 rounds. The thing is that when the slide's already back and when people put in that other magazine, the slide goes forward, they look at it for a little while and it takes them a little moment to process what's just happened. Now, this is where things get interesting, because the longer that you stare at that trying to figure out what happened, if you do this in a real fighter situation, well, it's going to take longer to get that gun back into service, as opposed to if the slide went forward anyway, if you don't think about it and just rack the slide regardless, you get the gun back into the fight much faster. And I would rather have getting my situation where I'm getting myself back into the fight with 6 rounds, as opposed to hesitating for a little while and then figuring out what's going on, then getting those 7 rounds into the fight, because the longer I hesitate, the more chances I'm giving the bad guy to shoot me or fuck me up in some way. Now I just want to do a quick follow-up on clearing the malfunctions that I spoke about in the part 2 video. Now, here's the thing. Someone else was saying to me that he took some, Cinerex's Relock course someplace, and the clearing of the malfunctions was different to what I showed, because assuming you've seen the part 2 video, you would already know that I teach a tap and rack to clear everything. And yeah, in a lot of official places that teach car, like for when it comes to a failure to eject, otherwise known as the stovepipe, they teach the technique where you take your hand like this and swipe it off, or swipe it out I should say, in order to clear that malfunction. And yes, in theory, doing that is faster than doing a tap and rack, as well as the fact that doing so for the most part won't eject another round, which doing the tap and rack will. And however, this sort of comes back to that principle of hitting the slide release versus racking the slide. It's the fact that it takes more time for the human being to analyze exactly what the issue is with that gun. So I pull the trigger and nothing happens, and I'm like, okay, well, what's wrong with it? I then need to physically inspect what the issue is in order to clear it, and the time it takes me to physically inspect what's wrong with it is what's going to ultimately take longer. So in this sense, like I go, oh, okay, I can see a bit of brass hanging out, so I'll need to swipe it. Whereas if the gun just doesn't work for any other reason, assuming that I'm out of ammo, if I just tap and rack, it's going to clear that malfunction much faster than if I'm going to go, The other issue is that if you're in a real low light situation, you can't see what the problem is. And so you'll either need to spend more time physically feeling what the issue is, or you could just shortcut that by tapping and racking. So that's what I prefer to do. Now keep in mind, yes, even though I advocate Kara and all this, here's the thing. With any kind of system that's being taught, it doesn't matter whether it's, Cinerex's Relock or whether it's, karate, Krav Maga, it's not really the system that you're learning. What you're learning is teachings from the person that is the instructor. So think of it like this. I'll put the gun in for a second. Think of it like this. Think of whatever your favorite song is, okay? Now imagine there's another band that does a cover of that song. So it's still the same song, but someone else is putting their spin on it. So that's essentially just what I'm doing here. So I'm teaching Cinerex's Relock to the way that makes most sense to me. And so that's why I advocate doing a tap and rack for everything, because it makes more sense in that manner than by having to... basically I just prefer having one technique to fix everything than having, like, an individual technique to fix, whatever the issue is, whether it's failure to detonate, failure to extract, double feed, or fucking failure to feed, blah 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 blah. The other thing I want to mention is when it comes to dealing with that double feed, as I stated, the technique was to take the magazine halfway out, hold it in place with the pinky, then hold it, slide back like that so that everything in there that needs to fall out will fall out. My variation on that was to go 1, 2, 3, holding it back on the last one, then sending it forward, pushing the magazine back in, racking the slide, and then getting the gun back into the action. This does work really well with Glocks and a lot of other semi-automatic handguns, mostly striker-fired ones. Some of them it doesn't work all that well with, and so when it comes to dealing with that, what I would recommend doing, if, again, you should have tested it first to see if it'll work well or not, but if it doesn't, what I recommend doing is trying this one and see if it should work better, and that's just taking the magazine out entirely, and then retaining it in the, the cigarette grip, then holding the gun normally like this, and then racking the slide, but going 1, 2, 3, like that, putting it forward, then pushing the magazine back in, racking the slide again, getting the gun back into service. Well, this concludes the video. Thank you to everyone for watching who made it this far, and stay tuned for other videos. There'll be more on Cinerex's Relock and more on other subjects that no one gives a shit about. Anyway, as always, stay safe.
Pew 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 pew.
Forget it. Are you still here? The video's over. Go practice.